Welcome to Graphing in Google Sheets. This is Mrs. Krajewski. There are so many benefits to learning how to create a graph electronically. It's a great time saver, and it allows your graph to look very professional. Graphs are part of the news and information that we receive on a daily basis. We often see polls and trends represented in graph form. Professionals are often asked to interpret graphs, but are also asked to create graphs. As we begin this process today, keep that in mind. This might be something that you need to do in your future job. After collecting data in an experiment, it is often necessary to create a visual representation or a graph for data analysis. Here is data that was recently collected from a lab experiment. We will see in this presentation how we quickly transform this into a professional-looking graph. Prior to creating a graph, you will want to reference your lab planning process and take a glimpse at what you identified as your independent and dependent variables. Before beginning in Google Sheets, I like to create a quick sketch of what I anticipate my graph will look like. Notice that my independent variable is on the x-axis and my dependent variable is on the y-axis. Based on my data, I know the hot water cooled down and the cold water warmed up. At the end of the 15 minutes, the temperature was approximately the same in both beakers of water. Here I've sketched my hot water data and cold water data to reflect the trend on the graph. Once your sketch is created, you're ready to begin in Google Sheets. You will locate Sheets using the same process you use to open any Google item. Then open a new sheet and name your file. Place your cursor in box A1. This is where you will type out the label and units of measurement for your independent variable. Then move to box B1 and do the same for your dependent variable. In this experiment, we actually have two different items that were measured. To accommodate this, we will add the second dependent variable in box C1. If you had a third item, it would go in box D1, etc. Once your headers are created in row 1, you will begin the process of entering the appropriate data under each header. In this experiment, we measured data over 15 minutes, so you will see the numbers 0 through 15 entered under column A. Then you will continue adding the appropriate data under the other headers. Notice that only numerical values are entered. I did not add the degrees Celsius next to the measurements of temperature. As you finalize your data entry, you will want to glance over it quickly to make sure the entries look accurate compared to your data table. Then you will place your cursor in A1 and click and drag to select all of the cells that contain data. Once you have the data selected, go to the top of your spreadsheet, select Insert, and then select Chart from the drop-down menu. Google Sheets will need a few seconds to process your information, but then we'll use the data you provided to create a graph. Here I've zoomed a little bit into the graph. In this graph that Google Sheets created, the title is not quite what we want it to be. So simply click into the title and you will be able to edit the words. After editing the title, you will want to look over the rest of your graph to see if it makes sense. I noticed that my cold water has a red label and my hot water has a blue label. This doesn't make sense. To change the color associated with each item in the legend, just click on its line within the graph. This will open up an editing menu to the right. Now I can change the hot water color from blue to red. After changing the hot water to red, I need to change the cold water data to be in the color blue. So I simply click the line within the graph that relates to my cold water data. This switches the editing menu to the appropriate section, and I can change the cold water color from red to blue. This changes the color of the line on the graph and in the key at the top of the graph. Look over the graph and compare it back to the sketch that you made. I notice that I am missing the label and units of measurement for the y-axis. There is no current label for the y-axis, so I will need to open the chart editor. To do this, click anywhere on your graph, and 3 dots will appear in the upper right corner. Click them, and then select Edit Chart. Once the chart editor opens up on the right side of the screen, you will see that there are 2 tabs at the top. Select Customize, and new fields will open up below. This screen is split into 2 different images. In the image on the left, you'll see that we're looking through the drop-down menu below Customize. Locate Chart and Access Titles and select the category to open up a new field. You'll notice in the image on the right that under Chart and Access Titles, it opens to the default of Chart Title, but there's also a drop-down menu. Click in this area. Under Chart and Access Titles, if you select Horizontal Access Title, you will notice that the title of time and minutes is already there under the box called Title Text. This is what Google Sheets has placed under the graph's x-axis. Within that same drop-down menu under Chart and Access Titles, select Vertical Access Title, and notice that the title text box is empty. In this area, we will add our label and units of measurement for our dependent variable. After typing out our new y-axis title, you will notice that it has appeared on the graph, and that our graph now looks just the way that we had planned. To be able to share our final graph with others, we can create a copy of it by clicking into the graph and selecting the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Then select Copy Chart. Then you can open a new file or go to the appropriate place in an existing file. Then simply paste your graph into its new location, and voila, you have a professionally created graph within your paper or presentation.